Okay, so I think that if you've been asking questions about the CNG, look, ask me. Well, maybe you may still ask. I think we'll have the man who might be answering your questions and might be responsible for you not seeing where you ought to, just maybe. Mr. Michael Oluwagbemi is here with us. He is the Executive Director of Presidential Committee on the CNG Initiative. I think it's PCNGI. Okay, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
Well,
Program Director.
Program Director.
Always put different titles. Yeah.
Program Presidential. Okay, Program Director.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what's going on with this program? How come people have been asking us questions as to they want to know, they want to convert, they want to do this and that, but quickly tell us, where are we at the moment?
Absolutely. Thanks, and good morning to your guests and your viewers. It's a pleasure to be on this program this morning. I think, first and foremost, it's good to first describe what the program does and then maybe put it in context of where we are so far. The Presidential CNG Initiative, of course, was empaneled by the President subsequent to the removal of the fuel subsidy with the intention to help Nigeria transition energy-wise in the mobility sector from the use of PMS diesel, which we all know is expensive. It's also subject to geopolitical issues that are out of the control of the average Nigerian. International politics determine the price of crude oil. And we've also not been able to refine what we produce, which essentially means that we're also paying a terrible price in terms of logistics and all that stuff. In addition to that is a dirty fuel. It pollutes our environment. And we also think that it's very necessary to begin to use the resource that God has blessed Nigeria with, which is gas. Nigeria is a gas province that happens to have oil. Almost every state in Nigeria has some kind of gas resource beneath it. The largest gas reserve in Africa that can last us 97 years. And we're also the second largest gas flare in the world after Russia. All of these statistics means that it's very important that Nigeria begin to use that resource, which is gas that we're wasting right now, to power our economy. You and I know transportation affects all aspects of our lives. It's responsible for 16% of the CPI basket, the inflation basket. It impacts the cost of agricultural produce, it affects the cost of goods and services, it impacts productivity of the economy. And if we're able to somehow control the price of transportation by impacting on the energy that is being utilized for it, we believe it will go a long way in helping to also ensure the economy is more productive. Economies of the world leverage what we call the unique selling point, which is the economic advantage of every economy. In the case of Nigeria, gas should be our economic advantage, and it was not. And what the president is saying is, instead of tying the Nigerian economy to the up and downs of the global economy or the strives of geopolitical contextations across the world, we want to use a resource that is abundantly available in Nigeria, which is reliable. I want to use a resource that is safer, because it is safer. CNG is much more safer than PMS and diesel. We know what happens when a vehicle that is running on PMS enters an accident. It immediately bursts into flame. This is not the case with gas vehicles. We also want to use a source of energy that's also cheaper and cleaner. So that's the reason why the PCNGI was set up. And so what we will do at PCNGI is three things. First thing is to incentivize the creation and catalyze the creation of a natural gas vehicle market that will utilize these gas resources that Nigeria has. We currently have about, depending on who you are listening to, between 14 to 20 million already PMS or diesel vehicles on the road.
20 million?
Yes, 14 to 20 million PMS or diesel vehicles on the road. Of that, about 7 million are commercial vehicles, which is what we refer to as mass transportation or ride and shares or buses.
Sorry, how do you get this figure?
Well, there's a national database of vehicles.
So if I go to convert now, they add me to the database?
Yes, if you go to, not convert, if you go to register your vehicle, these are just vehicles. I'm talking about the normal vehicles that we currently have in the country.
Oh, I got you. Million. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Of that, less than 7,000 are natural gas vehicles. So that tells you the massive disparity. What we want to do is to quickly move that numbers, upturn that number and turn the 7,000 to 1 million in the next 4 years, which is the mandate of the president. That allows us to begin to utilize our gas. If we have 1 million vehicles running, we'll be using about between 100 and 150 mm of gas a day. And if you get it up to 4 to 5 million, you're using about 750 cubic feet of gas a day, which is almost equal to what the power sector is currently using in Nigeria. That's the first thing first. So how do you incentivize the conversion of vehicles? And that's one of the key critical tasks or deliverable in this program. Like I said, we want to convert 1 million vehicles in the next 4 years by 2027. To do that, we need about 1,000 conversion workshops across Nigeria, with at least one in every local government area in Nigeria.
One in 774 local governments?
Yes. So we need 1,000 workshops across the country to do 250,000 conversions a year, which will translate to 1 million conversions in 4 years. That means each of these conversion centers will employ between 8 and 12 persons, which will be almost 12,000 technicians across the country. So it's also a veritable platform for job creation. The second thing we're going to be doing is facilitating investment.
Second or third?
Yes, so I've talked about the first, which is incentivize this conversion. The second thing is to facilitate investment into the sector. Because currently today, we have less than 23 mother stations that compress this gas. And further down, we have less than 13 refueling stations. Most of them actually, interestingly, are actually in Edo State. And then maybe you have one in Abuja.
Why is that?
Well, Edo State had been a center for one of the companies that actually was in the gas expansion plan, which is NIPCO. Yeah, so they've been leveraging gas. So you have most of these 7,000 vehicles I'm talking about are in Edo State. So these refueling stations need to increase dramatically. We also need to increase the number of mother stations producing compressed natural gas. Of course, the pipeline that is necessary to take gas as well as the NLNG, in the case of what we call the CLNG, where there's no physical pipeline, you need virtual pipeline, also needs to be built across the country. This infrastructure requires investment.
Virtual pipeline?
Yes.
Every time I hear virtual, it means you can't touch it.
Yeah. Well, a virtual pipeline basically means that you've put infrastructure in place to do liquefaction and then regasification, but leveraging trucks to transport liquefied gas from natural gas from one point to a regasification plant that then does the compression thereafter.
I see.
Yeah.
So the third is what?
So the third thing is, of course, to facilitate a regulatory framework for this. You know, naturally speaking, that natural gas, despite the fact that in its perfect, ideal, optimal form, is of course safe. What you also run the risk of is that folks will start using all kinds of gases, not necessarily because there's LPG, there's other gases that people that is a lot more accessible.
They confuse them.
Yes, and then you begin to explore the area of danger, and incidents start coming up, and everybody just says gas is gas. So we need to, and of course, because this program is predicated a lot on converting existing OEM vehicles, which means you are modifying, right? Which means that you need to make sure that they are properly certified or recertified for use after they are already modified. Okay. Then it means that for us, we need to naturally ensure that the regulatory framework for this conversion is in place as soon as we start that program. So these are the 3 points.
Okay, so for those 3 key points, I mean, there are several questions now that's just running through our heads as you went through those 3 points, because they all stem from us being inundated with questions and inquiry from the people out there in terms of what to do, how do they proceed. On that first and second point, in terms of making those areas available, you're trying to convert up to at least having one in each local government area, you're targeting 1 million. So before I come to the public sector, the buses and everything, for the private people who want to, I'm sure maybe that's what questions you get to meet a lot, because they ask us all the time too. I think in Abuja, how many do I have? Isn't it 1?
Yes, there's 2. Yeah, so there's 2 now. So speaking about where we are, last month we had 1. This month we have 2. So
what's the second one?
The second one is the NITT, the Nigerian Institute of Technology, Transport Technology workshop in Germany.
Okay. So first thing is that I see people, because they hear of CNG, they want to do it.
Yes.
They get to certain places. People use them, give them LPG, cooking gas.
Yes.
Now, that's completely different. That's dangerous. So that's why because they don't know better, they think, no, it will explode if you use, but clearly that's not, because they're using the wrong ones.
Yes.
So what do if somebody's listening right now, and he or she wants to get that conversion done, what do they have to do?
Yeah, so we'll be putting up a My CNG hub in the next few weeks. So one of the things we've been doing is actually collating the database of these centers. Some of them already exist in the form of normal workshops, but have technicians that are already accredited to do the conversions. We are updating our database to be able to, through the members of the public, you can get your vehicle converted safely in an accredited workshop somewhere close by to you. So that will be available to the public very soon. Today, at the initial point when we started the program, we were only able to identify about 7 of these workshops. But today, I think in our database, we have even close to 21, in between national agencies, some research institutions, some of them that are also private sector driven. In the last 1 month, through our efforts, the partner program, we were able to jumpstart 10 of them. We physically launched about 4, 2 in Lagos, 1 in Kaduna, 1 here in Abuja, and a few others across the country. That partner networks are now setting up. So the work of the conversion centers, I've already indicated, is private sector driven. But our work is to incentivize it. And we'll be rolling out an incentive program also in the next couple of weeks. So a lot of the work we'll be doing between now, August and now, especially since October when this was announced, after it was made public, has been on the planning side. Again, if you fail to plan, then you definitely have planned to fail. And we know that this program has been attempted at least twice before. And so it's not the first time.
Yeah, so I was just about to say, I do know that the NNPC, I think, I'm not very certain what year now, but it must have been sometime maybe in 2019 or there, but I'm not very certain when. The NNPC did pioneer and, push forward this idea of conversion. They even told, I think, vehicle owners that you'll get paid a certain amount. I think, or that we will do the conversion for free. And then I think a number of stations were also commissioned to, take that on. Even their own NNPC stations too were given that task. But after a while, we saw a lull. There was nothing happening with CNG, because one of the fears that people had was that there was going to be no continuation with this program. They felt that it was just something that government was doing knee-jerk.
Yeah.
And they were not wrong in terms of how that particular program panned out. So what exactly is the guarantee now that this is going to be something that is consistent, and that if eventually people go and convert their cars to CNG, they will not be stranded somewhere if they're trying to travel?
Yeah, so there are many legs to that question. So the first thing is, definitely there's been attempts, as I said, to do this program in the past. In fact, before the 2019, you'll be shocked that the first vehicles that was converted in Nigeria was like 1989, 1990. But then PPMC under the Ibrahim Babangida administration. And it was piloted in Nigerian Gas Company in Warri, actually. And some of those vehicles, you can still find them there abandoned 30 years later. But the reality of that was that there were no imperative for conversion when the oil was heavily subsidized. Where oil is selling for 160 naira and CNG was then selling for 140 naira, there was nothing driving. There was no economic narrative that would drive those conversions. But today we are seeing CNG is selling for between 230 naira and 300 naira equivalent. And you have oil selling, even some people say maybe subsidized in some ways, at 640, 650, maybe 700 naira. It should be selling maybe for 800 naira. Right? So you have that context. That makes it, now there's an economic reason for you to convert your vehicle. You can you can disobey the law of economics and expect somehow to pass economics. It just never happens. The reality is that behavior around energy is usually driven by economics. And the absence of economic thoughts or theories behind some of these national programs can imperil them right from the start. Right? So I know for sure that that in this current context, where fuel subsidy is no longer available, that we have a real reason to do it. And the government is committed. There's a political will. I think the president made this very clear. For a president that came in from day one to actually remove the fuel subsidy, and then his immediate steps on the palliative speech on July 31st was to announce the CNG program. And by October 1, a team was already in place, which is our team, and to implement this. And we are professionals and we are committed to doing this job for the country, to ensure that Nigeria successfully transits. And the last point, but very critical point, is that you will not be stranded. Because when you are converting your vehicle, you are not eliminating PMS.
Fuel component.
Yes, you are still going to have your PMS. But as the country requires, I talked about the refueling stations, we require about 3,000 of it for it to make sense for 1 million vehicles across across the country. Right now we're at 11, maybe we're going to get to 40, 50 by the end of middle of next year, and maybe we get to 100 at the end of next year. CNG stations are not going to be everywhere, refueling stations are not going to be everywhere as you like it. But what will happen is that because your vehicle is hybrid, and your vehicle will be run on both PMS.
So it will be safe for them to do that?
Yes.
But with CNG, safest, not LPG.
And we've been able to experiment, because there are people who actually do fear the safety of that. There are those
CNG.
who, of CNG, there are those who have been propagating that this ruins engines. I mean, cars are not meant. No, I know you're laughing, but these are some of the things that we have. You know, and they want to see other cars do it first before they. So do we?
Exactly.
We're using CNG vehicles. In fact, we did a pilot CNG test even by ourselves. Again, we know these fears, but the reality of it is that you have to ensure that your vehicle is worked upon by properly accredited. Again, the reason why we are not just jumping out in the public, again, the way this program is sequenced, is to ensure that we have this framework in place. Because, again, you are modifying, when you are doing conversion, you are modifying an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, certified vehicle already. You want to make sure that if you are doing that modification, that is a properly accredited technician that is doing it.
No, what I mean is, just a moment, what I really want to know is, beyond the fact that a properly accredited technician is doing it, and perhaps I also imagine that you will have mechanics who will be trained to know how to maintain these vehicles, because you don't want a situation where your car has problems and then you're stranded.
Absolutely.
I want to imagine that there have been extensive experiments conducted to know that, there's no harm whatsoever. And these experiments that will be conducted in Nigeria, before we're told that, the climate in those areas where it was called, we're not relying on some external experiment.
I just told you there are 7,000 vehicles running on this gas in Nigeria.
And we're monitoring them. We're doing polls with the owners of those vehicles.
And in fact, one of the owners of the vehicles that we ran into at the NIPCO station the other day, he literally said it was crazy if anybody in Nigeria is still running on PMS and diesel. He used to, when... It
was crazy if what?
Anyone else is running on PMS or diesel. He said as an Uber driver, he was taking
home... So we're all crazy right now.
That's what he said. He said as a Uber driver, he was basically taking home in a week before, prior to the fuel subsidy removal, maybe about 30,000 naira. And then upon the fuel subsidy removal, he would drive all day and get to the point of finishing of the day, and he could not get enough money to fuel his vehicle back home where he was residing in Abuja here. He's a pastor and a Uber driver. And he said after he researched and said, what can help me out of my situation? This is how he feeds his family. He then ran upon CNG, went to NIPCO, changed his old, we saw the vehicle. I can share the video with you guys. This guy just ran into us literally when we were expecting the NIPCO station, and he made this testimony. And he said he's now taking home 80,000 naira a week.
How much did he take in converting?
Today in Nigeria, for a vehicle, it costs you between 300,000 and 500,000, depending on the size of your engine and all that. Now you will break even if you are
commercial.
If you will break even using these typically, depending on the mileage you're going through, in about 6 months. So in about 6 months, you will pay off that cost of conversion, and then after that, it's yours to write. Of course, our program, the way it's designed, one of our incentives will be to see how to reduce or even eliminate the upfront cost to Nigerians.
Let's find out if Buki and Kaide are interested in any conversion.
Yes, indeed, Chamberlain. Of course, we're interested in converting our vehicles, but so many questions, to ask about the process. Before we'll personalize it, I'd like to know more about scaling this program up such that Nigerians, in general, can benefit from it. Particularly on the strength of the report by the NDIC that of over 100 million Nigerians who have BVN, just about a quarter of that number have about 500,000 naira in their account. So, and you have said again on this platform that to convert your vehicle from petrol powered, to CNG, you need about 500,000 naira. So what incentives, besides ensuring that, the private sector, continues to spread, its tentacles for the CNG centers across the country, what program do you have for Nigerians? I'm talking in terms of loans now, such that you can scale up, the number of more Nigerians who have the purchasing power to convert their vehicles from petrol to CNG, and particularly because, of the diminishing purchasing power following the increase in the pump price of petrol.
Yes, thank you very much. Fantastic question. Yes, we are going to be rolling out a series of incentive programs in the next a couple of weeks, again, based upon our own proper research and development, that will ensure to reduce the out-of-pocket cost to ordinary Nigerians, especially mass transit operators that want to convert their vehicles from PMS to bi-fuel vehicles that will be using both PMS and CNG. And to the point of the safety of CNG itself, I think I did not touch on that during the previous question. CNG, as it is compressed natural gas, is compressed at high pressure, but is encased in a tank that's about 10 millimeter thick, that is bulletproof. And naturally, if there's any let out of gas, it dissipates fast because it's much lighter than air. So it cannot be inflamed. The point of inflammation, which is the ignition point for it, the flaming point for it, is also quite high. So is not as dangerous when it on impact as PMS is. PMS is the flash point is quite low, and once it's entered into if a PMS vehicle gets into an accident, as we all know, it explodes. So in terms of intrinsic safety, CNG is much more safer, much more reliable. If you are using a CNG vehicle, you will not require the oil change you need all the time from the soot that is generated by PMS and diesel, which are big polluting vehicles, and also the engine requires much more maintenance. So these are the advantages. Of course, we're encouraging Nigerians to convert to make their vehicles hybrid, so they will still have a little bit of the disadvantages of PMS and diesel if they do that conversion. But over time, we're hoping that as a country, we begin to build our own manufacturing capacity, be able to develop pure CNG vehicles, even hybrids, OEM hybrid CNG vehicles, which also begins to create jobs within the country. This CNG program we have the opportunity to jumpstart not just the gas industry, but also the vehicle manufacturing industry, leveraging the gas that Nigeria has.
If I missed it, I wonder if you talked about a loan program that Nigerian can benefit from and how they can access it. That's exactly the thrust of my question.
Yes, there will be some kind of financing program, the details of which I indicated will be rolled out. It will be also, there will be significant palliative in that financing that will actually discount the cost of the conversion kits, which constitute the bigger cost of these components to Nigerians. So this will be made available for the first 55,000 kits that has already been rolled out, and if the president and the government does approve, subsequent programs will also include it.
So how soon will this program, come on stream? How soon do you expect to get approval for it?
Yeah, the current program is approved. It should be rolled out in the next couple of weeks, as I've indicated. We've been doing planning, ensuring that we have the conversion workshops in place to do the conversions, and also making sure that all of the necessary materials are procured and are available, because of course we do not manufacture conversion kits in Nigeria today. So all of those need to be in place to ensure that the program rolls out smoothly.
No, so bearing in mind that there are quite a number of Nigerians further down beneath the rung of the ladder who are not driving vehicles, is there any partnership with state governments, for mass conversion of the bus transit programs, such that Nigerians can also, the ones now at the beneath the rung of the ladder, can also benefit from it in terms of reduction in transportation cost?
Yeah, in fact, this first component of our program is targeted at the mass transit sector, because we know that the poorest of Nigerians are the most impacted by this fuel subsidy removal. So we are partnering not just with state government, but also to the various transport unions, NURTW, RTN, and NATO, and the rest of them. Some of them are even way ahead in terms of the adoption of CNG. For example, RTN already has a fleet of vehicles that are under their purview that is already running on CNG. Our work is to work with them to scale that up to ensure that they can pass on the benefit of the lower energy cost to Nigerians, especially the poorest.
Right. So one of our viewers, Godfrey Ponde, has this very important question. So we focused on vehicles, understandably so, but majority of Nigerians can afford vehicles. What they use for their businesses on a daily basis is either their generators, their blending machines, for vulcanizers and the rest, small businesses essentially. And he's asking that, is this focused just for vehicles? Is there a provision for converting? I know those things happen, perhaps with the LPG cooking gas, but is there a provision for CNG powered generating sets, particularly generating sets, because it's, that's rampant out there. That's what the average Nigerian relies on to power their homes and businesses. So is there something in the offing, particularly for generators and smaller machines?
Yeah, well, our program is focused primarily on mobility, on transportation. I'm hoping that we will not have to be using generator sets as a country. As a power engineer myself, it's a shame that we're still talking about gen sets, but I'm sure the president's team is working very hard just to make sure that we can this rolling power blackouts and the issues associated with the power sector can be a thing of the past. Our work primarily is transportation, and I thought you were going to mention the keke napeps, because this is the tricycles. These are an important component of transportation across the country for the poorest, and our program does have a significant component of a tricycle deployment, CNG tricycle deployments across Nigeria. Oh, interesting. Expecting to have about 10,000 of those deployed in the next 6 months to 1 year.
So are you saying that
will be a significant component of adoption of CNG at the bottom of the pyramid?
Fantastic. Just to be clear, are you saying that tricycles that are operating now can convert, so you have to buy tricycles that are, fashioned originally for CNG, or the current tricycle owners can actually convert right now?
Yeah, both can be done. We just looked at the cost benefit. Again, there has been some serious technical analysis behind the work, the component of our program. There are entities that will be offering conversions of existing keke, and they've approached us, and we are working with them to enable them to roll that out. But this program itself will be rolling out pure CNG tricycles because, of course, they are better, much more reliable in that specific component or category of transportation. And, of course, we want to use that to also enable rapid adoption of CNG at the bottom of the pyramid. Right. And they pass on that in real terms to average Nigerians.
So there's this big question in the air, and I think it's important to ask it. They say charity begins at home. If this will save the average Nigerian a lot of costs, so instead of buying petrol, by the way, whatever happened to the price of CNG? It looks like it has since increased now from what it used to be. So we hope that it will not be a challenge eventually down the road, that CNG will not be as expensive, but let's stay hopeful. What is going on with government institutions, maybe starting from the president, the vice president? Can't their vehicles also run on CNG? So we know that, starting from the top all the way down, they set the tone. We know that we're saving costs in government, and Nigerians, of course, naturally will follow suit. After all, they say change begins with me.
Very correct. So there are plans to support the conversion of government fleet in next year under this program. Because again, like you said, the benefit is not just ephemeral in form of just demonstrating that CNG is safe and Nigerians should convert to CNG, but it actually has and passes on to the cost of governance. Various government institutions, including the military, are engaged with us. The Federal Internal Revenue Service, among others, are already discussing with us to help to help support them to convert their fleet from PMS diesel to CNG. In terms of pricing, it is true that there's been some marginal increase in the price of CNG, but it has definitely not risen as fast as PMS and diesel, because again, that gas pricing is much more within our control domestically than crude oil.
is there going to be any incentive for anybody who wants to and can't afford it?
Yes, it's going to be incentive across board. It's not just even. It's going to be incentive across board. We want to encourage Nigerians, all Nigerians.
What about the buses? When will they start? The CNG buses?
Yeah, so the placement of the orders for the buses are taking place already. We expect a number of those buses are going to be assembled locally. Again, in the spirit of using it to also jumpstart the domestic auto industry. So we expect assembly to start in about a couple of months. They've already placed orders for semi-knockdowns or completely knockdown parts. We also know that some of those buses are actually will be ready to deploy at the state level. Some states are already deploying theirs, Ogun States and Borno States specifically. So you have a combination of a federal effort, state efforts, and even some private sector efforts in deploying buses.
All right, we can't ask all your questions because we're out of time on this one. I know there's several components and perspectives to all of this, but I'm sure in the days ahead you'll get to get a lot more information about all of this if you are so interested. I want to thank you for coming on. Michael Olagbemi, Executive Director, Program, is that Presidential Program? Program Director.
Yeah.
Presidential Committee on CNG Initiative. But this, okay. I know there's so many perspectives you want to find out on this matter, but I guess we'll see you some other time.
Thank you so
All the
much.
best.
It's a pleasure.
All right.